Hello guys, welcome back. Close your eyes for a second and imagine holding a map from 1513. Now imagine that map showing a continent that wasn't supposed to be discovered for another 300 years. Sounds impossible, right? What if everything we think we know about our past is missing a key chapter? What if, scattered all over the globe, hidden in plain sight, are clues to a part of human history that's been totally erased? For centuries, a handful of controversial maps have fascinated researchers, mavericks, and mystics, charts that seem to show impossible things, like lands drawn with unnerving accuracy long before the age of exploration. Tonight, we're not just looking at one weird map. We're going on an investigation. Our goal is to decode these maps that seem to prove that a lost, advanced, global civilization once existed. We'll follow the evidence, weigh the wild claims against the hard facts, and ask the big question: are these the last remnants of a forgotten world? Fact number 1, the central mystery. Our journey starts with a controversial name at the center of this whole mystery, the late Professor Charles Hapgood. He wasn't some wild-eyed theorist, he was a college professor who taught history, anthropology, and the history of science. Hapgood became obsessed with a series of maps that he believed couldn't be explained by mainstream history. He thought they were just too accurate, that they showed things no one should have known, and that they all pointed to one explosive conclusion: an advanced seafaring civilization had mapped the entire globe during the last ice age, right before a global cataclysm wiped them off the face of the Earth. According to Hapgood, the few survivors passed down this incredible knowledge through a series of copies, with each one getting a little more distorted over time. He argued that these fragmented charts were the secret source maps used by cartographers in the Renaissance to create their own world maps. It's an amazing, romantic, and incredibly compelling idea. The thought of a lost golden age, a civilization that came before us with technology that could rival our own, really speaks to that deep-seated wonder we all have about where we came from. But is any of it true? To find out, we have to look at the evidence, piece by piece, starting with the most famous one of all. Fact number 2, evidence number 1, the Piri Reis Map. This is the map that kicked everything off, the Piri Reis Map of 1513. It was drawn by an admiral in the Ottoman Navy, and it's a completely legitimate historical document. The controversy is all about the landmass you see at the very bottom. Supporters of Hapgood's theory claim this is, without a doubt, the northern coast of Antarctica, specifically Queen Maud Land. And even more impossibly, they argue it's shown free of ice. Since Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and we had no idea what it looked like under the ice until we developed modern seismic technology, this map looks like a smoking gun. Piri Reis himself even wrote in the margins that he built this map from about 20 different sources, including Portuguese maps, an Arabic map, and even a lost map drawn by Christopher Columbus. Hapgood was convinced one of these sources had to have come from that ancient precursor civilization. However, when you put the map under a microscope, a very different story begins to take shape. Mainstream map historians and geologists almost universally disagree with this interpretation. They argue the landmass isn't Antarctica at all, but a heavily distorted drawing of the South American coastline, which was bent eastward simply to fit on the gazelle skin parchment. In fact, to make the map even remotely fit the shape of Antarctica, you have to rotate and scale it in ways that just don't hold up. Skeptics also point out that if this really were Antarctica, it would mean the continent was somehow attached to South America just a few hundred years ago, which we know is geologically impossible. On top of that, ice core samples show that Antarctica's ice sheet hasn't been gone for a few thousand years, but for millions of years. The idea of an ice-free Antarctica existing as late as 4000 BC, like Hapgood proposed, is contradicted by a mountain of scientific evidence. So, is the Piri Reis Map a window into a lost world, or is it a fascinating but flawed product of 16th century map-making, where cartographers were doing their best to piece together a new world from fragmented and often contradictory stories? The plot only thickens with our next piece of evidence. Fact number 3, Evidence number 2, the Oronteus Finaeus Map. If the Piri Reis Map was a spark, then the Oronteus Finaeus Map of 1531 was an absolute wildfire. At first glance, this map is even more jaw-dropping. It shows a massive, heart-shaped continent sitting right on the South Pole, complete with coastlines, mountains, and even rivers. Its shape has an uncanny resemblance to modern maps of Antarctica's subglacial landmass, what the continent looks like under all the ice. For those who believe in the lost civilization theory, this was powerful proof. How could a map from the 1530s possibly show a continent hidden under miles of ice with such apparent accuracy? Hapgood and his followers argued that this map, just like Piri Reis's, had to be a copy of an ancient source. But, once again, when you dig into the history, things aren't quite what they seem. The landmass on the Finaeus map is clearly labeled Terra Australis incognita, the unknown southern land. This wasn't a real place that had been explored. It was a hypothetical continent, a philosophical placeholder that was actually invented by the ancient Greeks. Thinkers like Pythagoras and Aristotle reasoned that for the Earth to be balanced, there had to be a giant landmass in the south to counterbalance the known continents up north. For centuries, this ghost continent kept appearing on maps. When early explorers like Ferdinand Magellan sailed south and saw lands like Tierra del Fuego, mapmakers just assumed they had found the northern tip of this great southern land. Finaeus himself wrote on the map that it showed lands, recently discovered but not yet completely known. His map was a brilliant piece of speculation, blending the latest discoveries with ancient Greek theory. The similarities to Antarctica are really just on the surface, and the inaccuracies are enormous. The landmass is over 200% larger than the real Antarctica, and its placement and shape have to be significantly twisted and scaled to match reality. The source wasn't a lost civilization, it was the active, brilliant, and often wrong imagination of the Renaissance. Fact number 4, a pattern of deception, or discovery. The Piri Reis and Oronteus Finaeus maps aren't outliers, they're part of a long tradition. Dozens of maps from the 16th and 17th centuries, from legendary cartographers like Gerardus Mercator and Abraham Ortelius, show some version of Terra Australis. Each one is a little different, shaped by new rumors and philosophical arguments, but they all show a massive, speculative southern land. But perhaps the most curious case is the map made by Philippe Bouache in the 18th century. His map, published in 1739, is famous because it seems to show Antarctica not as one solid continent, but as two large islands separated by a clear channel of water. This looks shockingly similar to our modern understanding of the Transantarctic Mountains, which divide the continent into East and West Antarctica, with much of the western bedrock lying below sea level. So, proponents ask, how could he possibly have known this? The secret is right there in Bouache's own notes. See, he wasn't copying an ancient map, he was a theoretical cartographer. He didn't have lost sources, he had a hypothesis. He reasoned that the giant icebergs explorers saw floating north must have come from meltwater flowing from huge rivers inside the continent. Therefore, he guessed, the continent might be split by an inland sea. He was making an educated guess. It was an incredibly clever one, but it was still just a theory, a product of logic, not lost knowledge. Fact number 5, the grand theory and the hard reality. This brings us back to Charles Hapgood's big idea, his grand unifying theory, Earth Crust Displacement. He theorized that the immense weight of the Ice Age glaciers created such an imbalance that it caused the entire crust of the Earth to suddenly and catastrophically shift over the mantle below. In this model, Antarctica wasn't always at the South Pole. It was once in a much warmer climate, and this sudden shift is what moved it to its current frozen home, wiping out its civilization in the process. This, he argued, was the real cataclysm behind the myths of a great global flood and the destruction of Atlantis. It's an epic story of planetary destruction and forgotten history. The problem? The theory of a rapid, catastrophic crustal shift is considered pseudoscience by pretty much every geologist today. While the Earth's crust absolutely moves, it does so through the slow, grinding process of plate tectonics, We're talking centimeters per year, not thousands of miles in the blink of a geological eye. But here's where the story takes a really fascinating turn. Science has discovered real lost continents. Not through myth or old maps, but through geology. There's Zealandia, a vast continent about 2/3 the size of Australia, with 95% of it now submerged under the Pacific Ocean. Only New Zealand and a few other islands remain above the waves. Scientists also recently confirmed the existence of Argoland, a continent that broke away from Australia 155 million years ago and now lies in shattered fragments under the islands of Southeast Asia. And we've found Greater Adria, a continent that was slowly scraped off and shoved beneath southern Europe, with its remnants now forming parts of the Alps. These lost lands are real, but their stories are written in rock over millions of years of tectonic movement, not in human maps. They existed and vanished long before the first humans ever walked the Earth. So, where does this all leave us? We've looked at maps that, at first glance, seem impossible. We've explored the grand, romantic theory of a lost golden age, of a high-tech civilization that vanished into myth. But we've also seen how Renaissance speculation, brilliant guesswork, and the simple human need to fill in the blank spaces on the map can create mysteries where there might not be any. These old maps aren't photographs of a lost world. They're a mixture of fact, rumor, ancient ideas, and imagination. They don't show us what the world was. They show us what people believed it to be. But does that end the mystery? Are these just beautiful mistakes, or is there a small piece of truth hidden beneath centuries of myth? Are we looking at the ghost of a real place, or simply the ghost of an idea? The debate isn't over. Now it's your turn. What do you think? And if you're ready to explore more real lost lands and hidden history, subscribe, because our journey into the unknown is just beginning.